Welcome to part 2 on how to make the stereo cards. First thing I do after having the card made on the computer, I have it sent to the printers and maybe I'm waiting for them to come back. Quite often I'll have extra backing boards ready, but if I don't, I'll cut them while I'm waiting for the cards to get completed. The product I use on this is called a Rising Bristle Board. It's a plate. It's a non-textured surface. It's 3-ply. The size that I've determined that I wanted to use or get is a 30-inch by 22-inch sheet, which is what you see laying on top of a mat cutter. And if you look closely, I also have a white shelving board. I think it was from Menards, Home Depot, one of those places should carry that. I cut it to the exact same length, and I had a couple of those straps, and so I screwed the two together on both ends. If I ever have to take it apart, the relationship should be the same. In addition, you'll see a couple of pins, and I guess I have another hole a little farther away, but I use that for my setup so I don't have to measure my sheets all the time. What I'm after is a 8-inch by 11-inch backing board sheet that'll mate up with my pictures that I have coming in, and then I'll adhere the two together. Okay, so now I zoom back out. I'll show you how I go ahead and cut these. Here's my other hole for 11 inches. I've also measured this part, your sheets, which you should do. This one actually is a little under 30 inches. It's a 1/4 inch short. So my first cut is just to cut off that 6 inches. So my cut here, I'm on the edge, is 5 3/4 to the center. And then I have 11 inches off that edge of that dowel pin to the center. And when I move this up into here, I'll have 8 inches. So I just shove the sheet up against, cut them, move them in, cut them, and I'm done. I'm not measuring every sheet. So I'm going to cut off the 6 inches. Just slide that up against the stop. Not quite 6 inches. And here's the off ball we have left. I have found some uses for this. You can cut them up for bookmarks. Be ideal for that. On your filing cabinets where there's a little place to label what's in the drawer, you can cut them up for that as well. So you can find a lot of uses for them. I've even cut up a few of them for where I store my stereo cards, and to label what this group of pictures is. Okay, one of the things from past experience, now we're down to a 24 by 22 inch sheet. Sometimes I'll go through and cut several 6 inches off to begin with it. You almost have a square part. So you want to make sure that you've got this thing rotated right. You might want to measure it just to not waste any more material. Okay, so now I'm going to make a cut down the center. I'll end up with two 11-inch by 24-inch pieces. We'll set this one out of the way a little bit. Do that. Let's move our pins. And we just want to cut the 8-inch now. Just slide the backing board up to those pins and cut. And now we have 6 of them cut out, ready to go. The quantity that I buy these at, making a stereo card, it ends up being 17 cents for each card for the backing board. Okay, we've just finished cutting our bristle board or backing plate. Have several sheets ready to go. It's time to apply the adhesive. The product that I use on that is a 3M 568 Scotch positional mounting adhesive. It works real well. It has a release agent on one side. Comes in a 16-inch by 50-foot roll, and I just opened a new one. You can see it laying there on top of the green mat. So from there I'll show you how I apply the adhesive to the sheets. Okay, here's a couple sheets that we've just cut. Try not to touch that adhesive because it'll stick to your finger and come off. Usually just use the X-Acto knife. Alright, here's my sheets. I kind of look at them to make sure one side doesn't have to be dirty. If it's dirty, put it down because it won't show. The picture will cover it. Or if one side's a little lighter, in this case it doesn't really matter. Again, I'm 16 inches wide and my backing board is 8 inches wide, so we're going to get two of these side by side. And just line up the edges when you think you have it. Set it down, grab the other board, take a quick look at it, do the same thing. Take an X-Acto knife, cut along the board, and then right down the center. Okay, so now we had the adhesives on, but we need to get it to adhere. So when you order the material, a little scraper comes with it like this, and then you need to scrape that. Apply some pressure, make sure you have the backing side up. You just apply pressure. That it gets a little hard on the hands. What I ended up doing was taking some handrail, took my table saw, sawed a slot down the center of it. This fits just about perfect, saves my hand. You just want to apply a little pressure to it, flip it around, do the other side. And we'll do the other one. Okay, now if you didn't do that, I have a piece here where I've just got it laid on. Hopefully we'll see what happens. But some of the glue, it just doesn't stick. It starts coming loose, cause you all kinds of problems. So you need to apply some kind of pressure. Sometimes I just take a rolling pin. Actually, I bought this at an antique store thinking, this would save me from all that hand pressurizing. But it will still have a tendency to come loose, so you still have to put a little more pressure on it than what that roller will give. Okay, we're ready to apply the picture to our backing plate that already has the adhesive on it. As you can see, they pretty well made up the same size. So let's go to the next step. You could freehand this. I don't like to take any chances. By this time I've got expense in the backing plate and in the adhesive and my picture. So I just clamp a little straight edge. Bring my plate. Okay, again, I'm 11 inches. I got a 12-inch straight edge, so I'm in about a ½ inch each. Grab the release paper, kind of hold it and pull back. You can see it's not separating or anything. Take your picture. Again, 3 cards on there. Make sure there's not any dirt or dust on the back, and align it. I'm just going to roll this one. Actually, I'm going to cut this next. Sometimes I just usually roll this and I do my final pressing with my individual cards, and I'll put some release paper on it so I'm not damaging the picture any. And I think we have that done and ready to go to our next station. Now we're ready to cut the stereo cards out of the blank, the 3 different cards. You can see I have it on our paper cutter. And I've started the one end. I'll zoom in on that a little bit. If you remember or watched part 1 where I told you how on my Photoshop I had a form sheet that I would bring the cards in place. I also told you that I had black lines on 4 corners, and this is where I use those lines. And I'm right on that black line with the paper cutter on that end. And I have this line real close as well. In a second I'll go back and double check that, and then I run that little board you see right aside of there. It's just a scrap piece of wood. I'll place that on top of the cards and put pressure on it to hold the card so it doesn't move on me as I cut it. That is right on the edge of the cutter, so it should be pretty good right where we're at. Just bring the cutter down. We have a nice clean cut. Now we want to do the same on the other side. This is where we're actually squaring up the sheet, if you will. So if it got put on a little crooked, we have just a little bit of play here. And now we have both the long edges cut. And now we just want to start coming across, cutting in this manner. Line it up the same way. That's why I put the black lines around the card in the stereo photo maker. Try to get the black line right on the center of the metal. And now we have our 3 cards cut apart. And they look pretty good. You can see a little bit of black line. This one is a little bit here. Other than that, it's pretty well gone. That's how I end up cutting the cards with a paper cutter. Okay, we're ready for one of the last steps. I have what's called a Lasco corner rounder. I believe it has a 1/4 inch or 3/8 inch radius built into it. And now I'm going to take my cards with the square corners and put a radius on them, which will give them a lot more of a finished look. I have to make 4 punches on each card. Just push the card in and up against the guides, bring it down, it becomes radiused. Last step I do is again to apply pressure so that I know I have a good bond between the 3M adhesive and the picture. And I'll just take the scraper and go over a couple times, flip it around. And my card is basically done. There's one last thing I do. I like to take a final look at the cards and put them inside of the sleeve. And so I'll have to set up one more time to show you that. Now we're back at the desk area just to do kind of a final inspect of the cards, if you will. We'll take a look at them and I'll show them through my viewer again. Final step I do is I actually have some plastic bags that I put the cards in, and they're called a stereo view sleeve. They're from Bags Unlimited on the internet. You can find them. They're 1.5 mil thick. They're 7 1/8 inch long by 3 5/8 inches wide. And if you remember, our stereo cards are 7 inches long by 3.5. My current cost on these cards at a quantity of 1,000 are 3 cents per card. We've actually gone in and put all of our antique cards inside these plastic bags or sleeves for protection. Okay, I have what's called a desk mount, a stereo viewer, kind of a unique piece. It actually comes from England, and there's just some embossing here, and the closest I can make out, I believe it's stamped February 20th, 1886 or 88, I'm not sure. Just kind of show you how it works. This back flips up and will hold your card. There's a little milled or groove slot in there that hinges up, and then the viewer hinges up as well. There's a little board that angles down, and now it can't fall over, tip back. This is a magnifying glass on top, so you can put your card behind it if you want to zoom in on an area to see what it was, and of course the viewers for the left and right eye. The whole top hinges up, and you can adjust the height. I usually have it up fairly high when I'm doing this. Okay, we'll just slide that back a little bit. So I'll take the card that I've cut out, paper cutter and the radius on the corners, and just take a quick look at it. Sometimes you might see a little burr on the edge that will usually stick out, but they'll just come off with a fingernail. The last thing I do before viewing them on there for the first time is I just have a little tacky cloth, I guess, and I'll go over the card just to make sure there's not a piece of lint or one of these little edge burrs from cutting the card off. I'll slide this a little closer, put my card in there just like a normal viewer. You slide it up till it comes into focus. Nice thing about this is you can look at it real easy without taking glasses off if you're a glass wearer. I have a nice crisp image on that. With all the lava rocks, there's a lot of depth involved on that. This is the sleeve I was talking about. Just slide it in. And now I have the card completed the way I like it. Those sleeves come in a bag like this. They're 100 per in a bag. Bags in them. That concludes part 2 of how I make my stereo cards. I hope you've gotten some helpful hints, or if you're just looking to start into making your own stereo cards, it should give you a pretty good idea of how to get started, or some ideas of what to look for, the materials that are used, actually how a card goes together. And I hope you have as much fun creating these cards as I do. They're a little time consuming, but it is a nice reward at the end when you have a nice looking card that you can look in the viewer and see some great depth on it. And it's an old technology. Hopefully you watch part 1 and tell others about it and enjoy. Thank you.